Damon had no idea what was going on, but he had a bad feeling. His mother worked in a coffee shop and lived a simple life with barely enough to get through each month. Their relatives refused to help them.
Perhaps she's taken to selling blood for extra money.
He pondered. He quickly ended the call to Alicia and rushed back to the university. In the meantime, Damon's mother had walked out of the university gates but hadn't yet left. The self-opinionated Alicia stood beside her as Esther hurriedly implored.
Alicia, please don't hold a grudge against Damon. I know my son didn't mean to steal the money, but he probably wanted to buy me some new clothes because mine are so old. I can give you my last $200 if you promise you won't tell anyone.
Esther knew the prestigious reputation the university had, and no matter what Damon had done wrong, she had to do everything in her power to ensure he graduated. Otherwise, his life would be ruined. Alicia snatched the money, but still looked unhappy.
You'd better take care of your son. He's going to get himself in trouble.
She turned on her heel and started heading back to the campus, just as Damon came rushing around the corner.
I didn't steal any money,
he bellowed as he ran along the sidewalk. Alicia's head spun around, and she glared at him.
I can't believe you still haven't learned your lesson and repented for what you did. If I say you stole my money, then you stole it. Not that it matters any longer because I've been reimbursed.
Esther started to feel flustered as Alicia's yelling was drawing a crowd. She grabbed Damon's arm and pulled him aside, saying,
Don't say anything else. We'll talk when we get home.
Damon wasn't having any of it.
But Mom, I didn't steal any money from her. Please believe me.
He pulled his arm out of his mother's grip and walked up to Alicia.
You said I stole your money, but what evidence do you have?
Alicia's head snapped back in surprise. She thought,
What? I don't need proof. Doesn't he know how poor he is and that what I say goes?
She stood there looking smug as the crowd grew. She suddenly felt too fed up with the whole situation to argue with a loser like him.
Damon Hemsworth, I thought I would let you go for the sake of how hard your mother's life has been trying to raise you. But seeing as you don't appreciate the opportunity I'm trying to give you, then let's go to the Students' Resolution Center.
She looked around at the crowd and, feeling encouraged, stood taller and faced him.
You don't seem to know right from wrong, even though your poor mother has done her best to raise you right. I know you supported a female streamer without her knowledge.
The crowd started talking among themselves.
I know that guy. Isn't he Damon? The person who supported Jessica? The one whose account she blocked?
Oh, he's that loser. Damon Hemsworth. This is my first time seeing an internet celebrity in real life.
Exclaimed a woman at the back.
Oh dear, well, look at how disappointed his mother looks.
Another commented in sympathy. Damon felt miserable and cringed every time a new comment was flung at them. He didn't care if they belittled him, but he couldn't bear what it was doing to his mom. He was a gentleman who didn't usually argue with women, but Alicia was an exception at that moment.
We don't have to go to the Students' Resolution Center. Let me ask you, how much are you saying I stole from you?
He persisted aggressively. Alicia remained arrogant as she spared him a glance of disdain.
$2,000. Do you think you can repay me that amount of money?
He squinted his eyes for a second and thought.
You said I stole from you to buy clothes for my mother.
Of course. Everyone knows what's going on with your family. It's obvious that the dress she's wearing costs hundreds of dollars. How could you afford it?
Everyone from the university knew Damon was impoverished. He would walk around in cheap clothes from thrift stores most of the time, but it was obvious that Esther was wearing a branded dress.
What a devoted son you are to steal someone else's money to buy clothes for your mother.
More and more people gathered around. Damon's classmates were among the crowd, but not one of them spoke up for him.
How much money did you have in your purse?
Alicia started to fidget and put her hands on her hips.
I have $2,200 in my purse at the moment. But $2,000 disappeared in class, and you were the last one to leave the room. I can't think of anything I've done to you to make you want to steal from me.
She stated smugly, hoping to embarrass him. He slowly nodded in agreement because he knew he had been the last person to leave the classroom.
But if I bought this dress for more than $2,000, what evidence do you have that it was with your money?
Alicia was dismayed. and she continued to glare at him. Finally, she relaxed when she realized that his implicit claim that he bought the dress with his own money was ridiculous. Any university student would be hard-pressed to afford clothes that cost $2,000, but especially a poor one like him.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Esther quickly dragged Damon aside because she could understand how desperate her son had been to buy new clothes for her, and was afraid that Alicia was speaking the truth. She didn't want to make a big deal out of it in case he was expelled, but he was unusually determined. For a long time, Alicia had looked down on Damon. She would constantly push in front of him in the canteen line and spread rumors about him in class. She would interrupt him in their group chats and let everyone know what she thought of him. She encouraged his friends to ignore him in case they became like him. But the opportunity had finally arisen for Damon to let everyone standing around know that he was someone Alicia couldn't afford to mess with.
I want to tell you that you can't afford the dress my mom is wearing because you don't have that much money.
He stated firmly. Alicia burst out laughing.
What's he smoking? He thinks I can't afford it? He's delusional.
She thought to herself.
Damon, you're crazy. You've been a loser for too long, and you'll never change. If I can't afford your mother's dress, I'll return the $2,000 to you, okay?
Her face showed her annoyance as her patience started slipping away. Damon had had enough. She had endlessly humiliated him, but that time was one too many, and he couldn't let it go. He just glared at her.
Well, I'll not only return the money to you, but I'll also slap myself across the face to save you from wanting to do it. How about that?
As she finished speaking, Damon held out the receipt for the dress.
Look for yourself.
He instructed as he threw it at her. Her face showed the surprise she felt at the price of the dress.
How is this possible?
She wondered. The dress was from that year's spring collection, and it had been sold for $35,000. What she found even more surprising was that Damon had purchased it at its original price with no discount. Since the designer's logo was on the receipt, there was no possible way it was fraudulent.
He must have bought it from the store in Wembley Mall.
She silently realized. Her hand trembled slightly because if she had to draw all her money, it wouldn't be more than $10,000.
How could he possibly have bought a piece of clothing for his mother at that price?
She started to feel uneasy as she studied Esther's clothing. It didn't take her long to realize that Esther's bag was also from the same designer, and she couldn't believe her eyes.
How come Damon suddenly has so much money?
She wondered in disbelief. The surrounding crowd fell silent as they tried to understand what was happening before them.
Alicia Mendez, what the hell's going on?
A woman yelled from the crowd.
Don't keep us in suspense. We all know that Damon stole your money, and we'll support you no matter what.
Someone close by commented. Alicia finally raised her head and looked at Damon's furious stare. She started to feel scared as she stuttered.
He didn't steal my money. I got it wrong.
Alicia had never dreamed that a loser like Damon would have such a large sum of money.
Could it be that he won the lottery?
She wondered, frantically trying to figure it out.
I'll give you back the money.
She said pitifully as she took it out of her purse and laid it in Damon's hand. $2,000 was half a month of her living expenses, so it wasn't much for her to forfeit.
You've forgotten something.
She knew that she had wronged him, but she didn't want to make a big fuss about it. She had no choice but to slap herself across the face before she spun around and ran off, feeling humiliated. After a few minutes, she ran into the university's parking lot, where she climbed into a BMW and burst into tears.
Charles, I've been bullied, and I didn't know what to do. You've got to help me get my own back.
Once the show was over, the crowd started to disperse. Damon looked at his mom, but before he had a chance to say anything, he noticed how upset she was. Although Damon's family was poor, Esther's pride and determination had been strong, and her integrity would never allow her to accept anyone's donation or financial offering.
Mom, please listen to me. I didn't steal the money.
But the look on her face never wavered.
Then, where did you get it from?
Damon was uncertain how to continue because Thomas had told him that Esther must never know where the funds had come from. It was unrealistic to say it was from a scholarship, so he tried to be vague and slightly shift the truth.
Mom, Please don't worry about it. All you need to know is that I'll take care of you from now on. By the way, why did you go to the hospital today? How can you sell your blood just to get money?
He gently asked as he took his mother's hand and examined her arm for any signs of needle marks, but he found no evidence that she had given blood. Esther retracted her hand.
You know me. I'm not one to owe anything to anyone, and I won't allow anyone to judge my son. But when I went to give blood today, a woman came to me and told me she was your classmate. She was kind enough to lend me $2,000.
She shifted uncomfortably.
I thought you'd been seeing someone and hadn't told me.
Damon knew Jessica too well to believe she could ever be generous enough to help his mother.
No. What did she look like?
His curiosity was piqued.
She was very beautiful. She was elegant and had a good figure. She was quite tall.
Esther happily recalled and tilted her head as she smiled.
Also, she was wearing a pair of tight yoga pants, and I thought you would hit the jackpot for sure.
There was only one woman who fit that description. Damon stood with his mouth hanging open. He knew only one person who fit Esther's description.
It has to be Tiffany Vandergeld.
He thought. Tiffany could be regarded as one of the most beautiful women in Hillwood University. She usually walked around in tight yoga pants that showed off her perfect figure because she spent a lot of her time in the gym and taking yoga classes. Damon had once seen her in the university's yoga class and thought she looked like an angel. That image was deeply embedded in his mind.
But why would she lend that sort of money to my mother?
He pondered, feeling confused. He stood pensively staring into space before deciding he would return the money to her the next day and thank her. Damon was also aware of his mother's stubbornness and knew that if she had given blood that day, she would more than likely have kept the information to herself. After ensuring his mom got home safely, he returned to his dorm on campus. His sleep was restless that night, so he got up early the following morning, got dressed as smartly as possible, and went in search of breakfast in the canteen. Once breakfast was done, he headed to one of the lecture halls for his first class at 8 o'clock. By the time he arrived, the lecture hall was almost full. As he found a seat, he felt everyone staring at him.
What's going on? Is there food on my face?
He wondered in dismay.
Look, there's that idiot, Damon Hemsworth.
Someone close whispered. Another student chuckled.
I cannot believe the most popular fool on campus comes to this lecture. He was banned from giving comments during a live broadcast, and his girlfriend was seeing someone else behind his back. I heard she spent the night with another man. He's a real loser.
A woman said, snickering. Damon tried to zone out the mocking comments from the other students, but he knew there would always be competition and someone gloating when mistakes were made.
Hey, I wonder where Noah is today. I can't wait to see the look on this idiot's face when he sees him.
I don't think he'll be too happy.
Another student laughed.
But he's lucky because Noah seems to be away today.
Damon just sat quietly and did his best to ignore the nasty comments, but he felt their stares like daggers into his back through the entire lecture. Once the lecture was over, he waited until everyone had walked out before he plucked up the courage to leave. As he walked through the foyer, silence fell, and it would have been possible to hear a pin drop. Every person there watched him with interest and then total surprise as he walked over to Tiffany, the most beautiful student on campus. Tiffany looked up to see what was going on and found Damon standing in front of her.
She has the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen.
Damon thought, as he stood before her with his heart hammering wildly in his chest.
Damon, what's wrong?
Tiffany asked gently as she hurriedly stood up. Even though he was wealthy, he realized money couldn't buy the confidence he needed for that moment.
She's definitely the most beautiful woman in this place,
he thought shyly.
Well, I wanted to thank you for what you did yesterday.
He gathered his courage, took a deep breath, and continued.
I would like to take you to dinner this evening at a restaurant of your choice if you would go with me.
The whole foyer burst out laughing. Everyone thought he was being ridiculous.
Who the hell do you think you are inviting Tiffany to dinner?
One guy shouted. A woman stepped forward from the crowd and said,
You're making us all cringe. Damon, You've just been dumped by Jessica, and for some reason, think you stand a chance with someone like Tiffany. I can't stand this anymore. You might need therapy. Damon.
The foyer erupted as everyone joined in with their comments. Tiffany stood in stunned silence.
Oh my God, he's the last person I would have expected to invite me to dinner.
Tiffany thought. She looked at him in dismay.
I only gave Esther the money because I couldn't stand seeing her having to give blood for a little bit of cash. I was just trying to be kind.
She thought. She continued to stare at him without saying anything.
I don't understand this guy. He doesn't take care of his mother, but has money to take me to any restaurant of my choice.
She didn't know what to make of Damon. Finally, the ruckus calmed down, which allowed her to speak.
I appreciate your kindness. If you insist on treating me to a meal, we can eat in the canteen.
She suggested, not wanting to embarrass him any further in front of so many people. A smile played in the corners of Damon's mouth as he gave a small nod in agreement.
She's as kind and considerate as she is beautiful.
He thought. At that moment, one of the lecture hall doors was flung open, and Damon looked around to find that Landon Bronsmith had stalked into the foyer. He was from another class, and everyone on campus knew he was actively pursuing Tiffany. The news had already reached him that Damon had invited her for dinner. Damon Hemsworth, you're either arrogant or just plain stupid, maybe both. A man would treat a woman to dinner at a high-end restaurant, not a canteen. And you certainly shouldn't invite a woman who is dating someone else. He stopped in front of Damon and continued. Tonight, I'm taking Tiffany to the Lashino Hotel. Landon was a very high-profile student, and everyone hung on every word he said. A woman whispered to her friend.
Wow. The Lashino is so expensive. A meal there costs a small fortune. Landon must be wealthier than I thought. I'm so envious of Tiffany. Damon's nothing compared to Landon.
Her friend replied. Tiffany had no idea how to handle the situation she found herself in, and she didn't like the way Landon pursued her and assumed she would go to dinner with him. But her thoughts were interrupted by Damon.
That's no problem.
He stated as he held her gaze.
I'll meet you at the Lashino Hotel tonight.
Then, Damon spun on his heels and left the foyer. The entire place burst into raucous laughter.
Does he even know where the Lashino Hotel is?
One guy said in between fits of laughter.
I think one meal would be the equivalent of his month's living expenses. He's lost the plot because his relationship with Jessica failed.
Another joked.
She did the right thing by breaking up with that douchebag. At least she's fallen for someone decent like Noah.
Throughout all the laughter and teasing, Tiffany remained silent. Her forehead was creased, and her eyes blazed with contempt. Landon's lopsided smile was cold as he stared at her. Tiffany, just remember it's my invitation you need to accept tonight. That guy's a piece of trash and is nothing to you. Damon returned to his dorm where he researched the Lashino Hotel online. He saw it was an expensive and luxurious hotel in Hillwood. It didn't bother him because he was the heir to the Serafino family fortune, and he knew that Landon's wealth was nowhere near his.
Perhaps I should lower myself to make the game a little fairer.
He mused. He thought about how his father had returned to the family after so many years and was still struggling to cement his status in place. Being part of such a wealthy family was not always as simple as it appeared. He had learned from Thomas, his father's assistant, that there were many potential Serafino heirs spread throughout the world, but only the worthy would be brought into confidence and trained to inherit the fortune. Damon picked up his phone and called Thomas.
Mr. Hemsworth.
Thomas answered, sounding thrilled.
I'm happy you called.
Damon got straight to the point.
I'd like to make a booking at the Lashino Hotel for this evening. No problem.
Thomas instantly replied.
I'll look at purchasing the hotel immediately.
Damon was speechless.
Did I just hear him correctly?
He thought, damn. Thomas's wild statement brought home just how wealthy and capable his family was. The Lashino Hotel was the top 5-star hotel in Hillwood, and it would undoubtedly cost millions, or possibly even billions, of dollars.
No, you don't have to do that. What I mean is, I need your help to find me a suit that would be suitable to wear for an evening at the Lashino. Oh, I see. I understand.
Thomas smiled into the phone. After a pause, he continued.
I've sent some photos to your phone. These suits have all been custom made for your father. Choose what you like, and they'll be delivered to the dorm within the hour. What the hell?
Damon mused.
This is incredible.
The Serafino family's influence and power had once again shocked him. Many of the family's clothes were custom made by private tailors and top international designers, and it was something he had to get used to. He studied the photos and selected one, which he sent back to Thomas.
I have one more thing to ask you. Is there something going on in the family that I don't know about that's causing a problem for my father? And is the reason he doesn't see me?
Thomas was silent for a moment.
There are always many things happening at once in such a large, wealthy family. I know your father is busy with many matters, but he will come to meet you as soon as he can.
He explained diplomatically.
Is there anything I can do to help him? Not that I can think of. You couldn't possibly be involved at this time.
Thomas answered as honestly as he could.
Besides, the reason you've been brought in so young is not to enjoy the luxurious lifestyle, but to prepare you to walk in your father's footsteps. You will one day inherit the family and its fortune. Oh? For you to inherit everything, you need a basic knowledge of how the upper echelons of society operate. You must have a good network of contacts. And most of all, a sound grasp of our financial resources. There's much to learn, and I'll be the one to teach you.
Damon found it all fascinating.
So, when do we start?
He understood it was a large task at hand. It wouldn't be easy to inherit everything that went with a family such as the Serafinos.
Seeing as you're keen to get started, you'll have your first lesson very soon. What would that be? How about we start with the purchase of the Lashino Hotel?